Hi, everybody. It's Joe Chaffee on this Friday, and we'll start off by wishing a happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Whatever you have planned this weekend, make sure you take some time for yourself and enjoy yourself. Very important. Dads don't always take the time, a little personal time. So try to make a little space for yourself and do what it is you want to do. And this weekend, as far as the weather is concerned, in at least my area of the Northeast, I've been saying that for the most part, it's going to be rain free. The threat for downpours will be there through the weekend, but they're going to be scattered in nature. So for much of you, much of the time, if not all of the time, you may not see a drop of rain. So if you've got outdoor plans, go ahead with them. It's not going to be picture perfect. There's going to be some breaks of sun, but it's not going to be there's not going to be a whole lot of it, but you should be A-okay. In the meantime, let's get going. We got the tropics actually heating up a bit here. We have been talking about the system in the that's coming into the northwestern Caribbean over the weekend, and the National Hurricane Center has raised its chance of tropical cyclone formation now to 60% over the next 5 days. Conditions are favorable for gradual development as this whole system starts to evolve now, and we'll show you what's going on the satellite in a second. But we also have the system now out in the tropical Atlantic, which the Hurricane Center is indicating now has gotten better organized, and we can see that also on the satellite view, and rating this now a 40% chance that this could actually develop into a tropical cyclone as well over the next 5 days as it continues to move toward the west-northwest. And this is pretty far out in the Atlantic. Here are the Cabo Verde Islands, and there's where the disturbance is. It's down way south. It's like right along 5 degrees north latitude, so it's pretty far south and moving west-northwest. So we're going to take a look, starting off with the water vapor imagery here. And you can see where the disturbance is, the tropical wave. It's right there. It's just coming on the edge of the screen right here. Not a bad looking wave for this time of year, actually, and it's going to be plodding along to the northwest. Notice the dry air to the north and west of it kind of diminished over the last couple of days, so the atmosphere is sort of saturating up to some degree. You could almost see a little bit of turning in this, at least at the mid-levels of the atmosphere. And here's our system in the northwestern Caribbean. And usually these systems do tend to develop slowly in the northwest Caribbean, and this is going to probably hold to form, but there is quite a bit of convection now developing in the central Caribbean right here. You can see this large area of purple and red, the enhanced cloud tops. On the water vapor imagery, I'm sorry, this is actual water vapor. It's not the enhanced satellite view, but you can see here there's some pretty good concentrations of heavy moisture that are beginning to take shape. So we will see how this plays out on the models shortly. Notice, by the way, you've got up to the north, these are non-tropical systems here in the upper atmosphere. We have a very large upper low. It's a deep trough. You can see it right there. That's one of the things that's really good about the water vapor imagery, is that you really can pick out some of the deep troughs that exist at the higher layers of the atmosphere, and it runs right in there across the northeastern Gulf of Mexico, out north of the Bahamas, and then dips southward here almost to Puerto Rico. So this is a strong zone. This is a zone of very strong wind shear that's up north of 20 degrees north, which is what you would normally expect this time of year. Now here's our tighter view of the system in the Caribbean, and you can see how much the cloudiness has increased over the last 24 to 48 hours in this particular area. It's this large area of disturbed weather that runs from the coast of South America across Central America and out into the Pacific, and it's right in this zone where pressures are continuing to run below average, and that is going to be a condition that is going to be favorable for development. Now let's look at the GFS on what it does with this. The models have been kind of jumping around in different directions depending on the model runs, and there's your low Sunday morning sitting in that L-shaped coastline in the northwestern Caribbean, and you have all this lower pressure here, but what we don't know is where the surface low is actually going to be. If it's over land, then obviously it's not going to develop. But if it's in the open waters, it'll be a different story. And the model has kind of a tough time figuring this out. But in general, it's a very broad area of low pressure. Right there, by the way, on Monday morning is the system, the second system. And it's got a small wrapped up little low here approaching the Windward Islands and Trinidad and Tobago, which is, right down in this area, very far to the south. This actually, the GFS at least, develops it into a strong tropical storm. Here we have this sort of broad trough of low pressure in the Northwest Caribbean. Eventually, a surface low does organize on the models, but we don't know if that's where it is exactly. It could be anywhere in this broad trough of low pressure that's going to be in the northwestern Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico. And the GFS really doesn't do too much with this. The European develops a little surface low, and on the overnight runs, it kept it in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico, and I'll show you that. Before I show you the European, let's see if the Canadian does anything with this system coming in from the Cape Verde Islands, and you really, there's like a little weak low there, but it's hard to find. Doesn't really do too much with it. It does spin up the one in the Caribbean. You can see it here, and it actually takes it straight north, which is what it's been sort of doing all along, up into the Florida Panhandle. But the other two models, and here's the European model. We'll show you that. There's the European. This is for, now we're at Monday night, so it's got a closed surface low in the southwestern Gulf, which it just kind of takes west or west-southwestward. So, what we've been saying with regards to all of this, and I'll put the upper air on. This is really what the battle is. You've got two ridges here, two very strong upper highs. Okay, here's the broad one in the Atlantic, and you've got the eastern edge of the one that's out on the Pacific side, and you've got this, kind of a hole in the middle. So it's going to be a question of how does this respond to that? Does it move more northwest, or does it, respond to the ridge that's to its northwest and turn westward? Okay, that is the big question, and what we're going to have to figure out over time is the subtle changes in the strengths of both these ridges, because if this upper high off the Atlantic coast is a little stronger, and a lot of times models do tend to underdo the strength of the Atlantic ridge, if that ridge in the Atlantic is a little stronger, it would favor a more westerly track. So that's where the key to this is going to lie going forward. And we'll keep you abreast of the developments as we go through the weekend and into next week with regards to all this. So let's show you the sensible weather as far as what's going to happen here back at home. And we'll get the GFS on here for you. I honestly wish we could have the European where we could see where the precip is. It's like we could show you both models back to back in comparison. One of the problems that the GFS has had is that it has been generating all this measurable precip, but it is not showing the actual radar echoes. And when we look at some of the shorter range models, we're seeing just scattered areas of activity. And that's why I'm thinking that for much of this area over the weekend, it's not going to be that bad. Yeah, there'll be some downpours around. Yeah, there'll be some thunderstorms around, but much of the time it won't be raining. You do have a weather front here, right here. There's a stronger front that's going to be moving east out of the Great Lakes and into the Ohio Valley Saturday night into Sunday, and that's going to push slowly eastward. But the Atlantic Ridge is pretty strong, so it's going to take a while for it to get here. And you really don't start to get into maybe a more widespread shower and thunderstorm situation here until Monday evening, where you have that front getting close to the coastline. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's maybe some severe weather that develops out of this. In the meantime, we do have, you can see it down in the Gulf of Mexico, right in there. You can see the 1008 isobar of the tropical system that may or may not develop. But I'm going to assume that it's going to develop to some degree. You can see it there on the edge of this particular run of the GFS. And then the front in the east goes through. Still some showers into Monday night. Then it looks like it'll improve a bit on on Tuesday. And now we're into the middle of next week, June 21st. A little disturbance here. Looks like another little front coming through for Wednesday with a few showers, and then it'll be dry and maybe seasonal or a shade above average, but not by much for Wednesday and Thursday of next week before yet another front approaches at the end of next week. So this pattern here is very favorable for weather systems to keep moving through every couple of days. So if it gets hot and humid, it may only be able to do it for one day and nothing too extreme. Also showing the increasing threat for showers over time. Whether that's real or not remains to be seen. And of course, now we're coming into the end of June, which, based on what the models are doing here, looks like it'll be dry and a bit on the warm side, but nothing extreme from what we're seeing at this point. Okay, the West, and I want to look at the West. I'm going to do the temperatures here in the West, and because one of my Facebook followers asked me about this, because it is going to get hot in the West, and let's take a look at how hot. So as we run this along, we've got here we are. Now we're into Friday. This is our first day, so we've got temperatures today climbing up into the 90s to near 100. Just inland of the coast, and you've got 80s down to the coastline. Same holds true for Saturday, and the same holds true for Sunday. So it is going to get hot in California. You've got temperatures between 100 and 110, and also in the southwest. And then moving into Monday, very hot. Look at that 112 being printed out. So some very hot air building all the way up into Northern California, 90s throughout much of Nevada. These higher elevations just had some big snows. I posted an Associated Press story yesterday about up in Yosemite in Northern California. They're still plowing at some of the higher elevations. So now we're into Tuesday and Wednesday, another hot day out in the West. So this looks like a pretty good heat wave for areas in the West into California, away from the coastline. So the overall weather picture in the West, as we put the surface up for you, I'm thinking that the amount of shower and thunderstorm activity through this period is going to be typically daily, the diurnal stuff, and minimal. And indeed, when we look at this, you've got this strong thermal low that's near Las Vegas, so it's creating easterly winds, and they rise up the mountains, and then you get the downslope on the other side, so that tends to heat up the air considerably on the western side of the ridge in California, and that pattern lasts through much of next week. And no, it doesn't look like any really big precipitation events going on in the western states. So they're going into what looks like a typical summertime pattern. Okay, so let's now we'll take a look at the upper air. The other thing about this time of year is that you start to have to deal with the subtleties in the upper air in order to figure out what the day-to-day weather is, because the jet stream is going to continue to be pulling up to the north. And here's our trough that swings around here in the east for this weekend. You can see how long it takes for that trough to swing down and around, and there's another upper air storm that moves over James Bay for later next week. That swings down and around. So you do have this general troughing that's in the west, and you've got this in the east, and this big ridge in the western U.S. In fact, there's that ridge in the west. It kind of goes back and forth, but it's certainly going to mean the hot weather is going to be out west now for a while we've got this trough in the east. And gradually, as we get later in the period, that trough pulls out. You get this sort of flat east-west ridge that develops. You still have a bit of a westerly jet that runs across the United States, but we're kind of on the edge of that. So the strength of it going back and forth will probably determine how hot it is or how hot it isn't. And you've got there's a little upper low that's sitting here over Alabama, so that's going to produce some showers and thunderstorms probably there. But overall, again, you start to have to look at the more subtle parts of the upper air in order to figure out their impact on tropical systems. So just to review very quickly, we are going to be watching closely these two areas of disturbed weather, one in the Atlantic that is still well out into the tropical Atlantic and very far to the south. National Hurricane Center is rating this a 20% chance of developing in the next 48 hours and a 40% chance of developing over the next 5 days. And our system in the northwestern Caribbean, which has near 0% chance of developing in the next 48 hours, so that'll carry us until early Sunday morning, and then a 60% chance that something develops in the period from Sunday morning into Wednesday morning of next week. So we'll watch that closely for you. Enjoy your weekend. Keep abreast of all the developing, all the latest weather developments on my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Chaffee, and of course on my website, meteorologistjoechaffee.com. And you've got Long Island weather at weatherlongisland.com, including a shore forecast for the weekend. Rip currents have been a big problem, and they may be a problem today, although there's a lot of clouds here, so I don't think this is going to be any kind of beach day. And also New York City weather with Angry Ben on nycweathernow.com. And you can also access that easily by remembering angrybensweather.com. All right, everybody have a great Friday and a great weekend. Be safe. Happy Father's Day. And we will be talking to you over the weekend.